All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever felt like you're just, I don't know, drowning in information, but still not quite sure what genuinely matters?
Oh, absolutely. It's overwhelming sometimes.
Well, today you're in luck because we're cutting straight through that noise. We're going to dive deep into something incredibly powerful, something that impacts every single organization, really, from the biggest tech giants, right down to a local charity.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that we're focusing on enterprise risk management, or ERM. And trust me, it sounds maybe a bit corporate, a bit dry, but it's really not. It's fundamentally about how organizations make, well, smart decisions, the kind that let them create value, hold on to it, and actually realize that value, which, ends up benefiting all of us in some way.
Exactly. And our mission for you today is pretty straightforward. We're going to break down this whole world of ERM frameworks. Specifically, we'll dig into the COSO framework. That's the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission. It's a big one. We want to make it really clear, help every piece click into place, make it easy to grasp. So by the end, you'll have this crystal clear picture of how smart organizations don't just react to uncertainty. They actually use risk and they leverage it for success.
Right.
So, yeah, let's get digging.
Okay.
So when we talk about this framework, maybe let's set the stage a bit first. This KYSO ERM framework, it wasn't born yesterday. It came out in 2004, but then got a really significant update in 2017.
Right. And that update was key.
Why the update? Well, simply put, the world got more complex, didn't it? New risks were popping up everywhere, and you had boards, you had leaders realizing they needed a more robust way to handle it all, something more comprehensive.
Exactly. And at its core, the premise behind ERM is actually quite simple. Every entity, every organization exists to provide value for its stakeholders. That's the goal.
Right.
But, and this is the crucial part, all entities face risk while they're trying to achieve that. You just can't avoid it.
So the framework helps give us a common language for this.
Precisely. CSO defines risk itself as the possibility that events will occur and affect the achievement of strategy and business objectives.
Right.
So basically anything that could potentially, mess up your plans.
Wrench in the works.
Exactly. And enterprise risk management. They define that as the culture, capabilities, and practices integrated with strategy setting and performance that organizations rely on to manage risk in creating, preserving, and realizing value. The really key thing to get here is that ERM isn't just a checklist you tick off once.
Right, not a one-off exercise.
No, it's ongoing, it's integrated, it should be woven right into the fabric of how an organization works every single day.
And that emphasis on value you mentioned, creating, preserving, realizing value, that seems absolutely critical.
It is.
It's not just some buzzword, and it's definitely not the same for every organization, is it?
Not at all. Think about it. A for-profit company, maybe a tech firm, their idea of value is probably shaped by balancing those big market opportunities against the risks of chasing them.
Okay.
But then look at a not-for-profit or maybe a government agency. Their value might be more about delivering essential services, balancing the opportunity to serve the community against whatever risks come with that.
So value really adapts depending on the entity's purpose.
Exactly.
And management's decisions. They directly influence how this value develops, right?
Got it.
I think there are 4 stages.
That's right. 4 key stages. First up is value creation. This is pretty straightforward. The benefits you generate exceed the cost of the resources you put in people, money, tech, your brand, all that.
Making more than you spend, essentially.
In a nutshell, yes.
Right.
Then comes value preservation. This is about keeping things going efficiently, sustaining the benefits you've already created. Think high customer satisfaction with a product line that's consistently profitable. You're preserving that value stream.
Makes sense. But it can go the other way, too.
Unfortunately, yes, that's value erosion. If you have a faulty strategy or maybe just really inefficient operations, your value can decline.
Okay.
And finally, there's value realization. This is the payoff when the stakeholders actually get the benefits. Could be monetary, like dividends, or non-monetary, like receiving a vital service.
So the big insight here, the sort of pass key takeaway, is that companies face risks at every stage. Risks of failing to create value or preserve it or optimize it.
Precisely. And ERM gives them that framework, that structure to manage those risks effectively and, well, confidently expect to actually achieve their value goals. And building right on that, ERM really gets that an organization's basic attitude towards risk, it's deeply embedded. It's right there in its mission, its vision, its core values. Getting that alignment right is just vital.
So let's break those down quickly. The mission is,
That's your core purpose, why you exist. Simple as that.
and the vision.
Your aspirations, what you're aiming to achieve down the road.
Okay. And core values.
These are fundamental. They're your beliefs about what's good, what's bad, what's acceptable behavior, what's not. They really shape how people act. If we connect this back to the big picture, it's all about making sure that your identity, who you are as an organization, lines up perfectly with how you approach risk.
Yeah, that alignment seems crucial. And it's interesting how ERM isn't just, a department over in the corner. The definition mentioned it's a collective and ongoing interaction of three things: culture, capabilities, and practices.
That's a great way to put it.
So,
I'm like-
culture, that's like the collective mindset, how people think and behave.
Exactly. It's that sort of invisible hand guiding how risks get identified, assessed, and ultimately responded to. And it's deeply tied to those core values we just mentioned.
Okay, and capabilities.
That speaks to the organization's agility, really. Its ability to navigate change, respond strategically. Sometimes that's where you find a competitive edge in how quickly you can adapt.
And practices are just the methods,
Yeah.
the tools.
Pretty much. The actual methods and approaches used to manage risk day to day, and they need to be applied consistently at all levels.
So the critical takeaway, another pass key here, is that your culture and your core values have to align with your risk appetite for this whole thing to work.
Absolutely. If they're out of sync, you're going to have problems, which leads us nicely to risk appetite. CSO defines this as the types and amounts of risk on a broad level that an organization is willing to accept in pursuit of value.
So it's not like a single number, a hard limit.
No, not usually. It's more of a range. It provides guidance. You first get a sense of it from the mission and vision, but it can vary. Maybe different product lines have different appetites, or it changes over time as your capabilities grow. It has to be flexible.
Right, the market changes, things shift.
Exactly. And the idea is if you consistently manage risk within that appetite, you significantly boost your chances of creating, preserving, and ultimately realizing value.
Okay, so this is all making sense conceptually. Let's talk about the actual roadmap then. Because the ERM framework isn't just abstract ideas, is it? It's built around 5 components all linked together.
That's right. 5 interrelated components, all driving towards enhanced value.
And there's a kind of flow, isn't there? Mission, vision, core values lead into strategy, which leads to objectives, then performance, and finally value.
Yep, that's the logical progression.
And those 5 components are governance and culture, strategy and objective setting, performance, review and revision, and information, communication, and reporting.
Got them all.
And for those listening who like memory tricks, these components have supporting principles, and apparently you can remember them with mnemonics, like DOVES, SAR.
That's right. DOVES for governance and culture, SR for strategy and objective setting, VAPAR for performance, SAR for review and revision, and TIP for information, communication, and reporting. They can be helpful hooks.
Handy. Okay, so let's unpack these components one by one. What's the essence of governance and culture? The DOVES part.
Okay, so governance and culture is really about setting the tone, the foundation for everything else. Think of the D in DOVES defines desired culture. This is huge. How does leadership actually shape the organization's personality when it comes to risk? Are you risk averse, risk aggressive, somewhere in between?
You need to actually decide, not just let it happen.
Exactly. Then O is exercises board oversight. The board isn't just rubber stamping things. They need to be active, independent, asking tough questions about strategy and risk. They need the right skills on board, too.
Active oversight, not passive.
Right. V is demonstrates commitment to core values. Tone at the top is critical here. If leadership doesn't live the values, it undermines everything.
Okay.
E is for attracts, develops, and retains capable employees. You need the right people with the right skills and judgment aligned with your strategy. This includes training, mentoring, planning for the future.
Building that human capital.
Yep. And finally, S is establishes operating structure. How are day-to-day operations organized? Does that structure support your risk management goals and align with your values? The key insight here: if your culture, how people really behave, doesn't match your values and risk appetite, achieving your goals gets much, much harder. Strategy needs to fit the culture.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast, as they say.
Something like that, yeah.
So once that foundation is solid, how does Key SO help organizations, SR, with their strategy and objective setting?
Right, the SR part. This is where you connect risk to your core direction. S is evaluates alternative strategies. You don't just pick one path blindly. You look at options. Do they fit your mission, vision, values? And critically, what are the risks and opportunities of each? This is where your risk profile starts taking shape.
Considering both sides of the coin.
Exactly. Take a lender setting interest rates. They're thinking about default risk, sure,
All right.
but also purchasing power changes, credit risk for longer loans. It all feeds into the strategy. Then O is formulates business objectives. These need to be specific, measurable steps aligned with your strategy. But here's a nuance. Setting really aggressive targets might feel good, but it can dramatically change your risk profile. You have to be aware of that.
Pushing harder might mean taking on more risk.
Often does. A is analyzes business context, what's happening outside their walls, trends, competitors, technology shifts. How does that influence your strategy? And R is defines risk appetite. We talked about this, but here it's defined in the context of creating, preserving, and realizing value for the specific strategies you're considering. It could be qualitative, we have a low appetite for reputational risk, or quantitative, we won't risk more than X% of capital.
Finding that sweet spot between risk and reward for your chosen path.
That's the goal, finding the optimal balance.
Okay, so strategy set, objectives defined. Now we get to performance, the VPR component. This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Absolutely. This is the active management part. V stands for develops portfolio view. You need a big picture look, a composite entity-wide view of all your risks. What types are they? How severe? How do they interact? Does the overall picture fit your risk appetite?
Seeing the whole forest, not just individual trees.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
Then A is assesses severity of risk. Once you identify a risk, how bad could it be? You assess this based on potential impact and likelihood.
Impact and likelihood, okay.
And this is where we often talk about different types of risk assessment, like inherent risk. That's the raw risk before you do anything about it.
Before any controls.
Right. Then you have target residual risk. That's the level of risk you're aiming for after you put your controls or responses in place. And actual residual risk is what actually remains after you've done your thing.
Okay, inherent, target residual, actual residual. Got it.
Next, P is prioritizes risk. You can't tackle everything with the same intensity. Based on severity, how important it is to your objectives and your risk appetite, you decide where to focus your resources.
Makes sense. You focus on the biggest threats first.
Generally, yes. ION identifies risks. This is about creating that inventory of risks. What could go wrong? Are there new or emerging risks we haven't seen before? Reevaluating existing ones too.
It's an ongoing process.
Constantly. And finally, ARAN implements risk responses. We touched on this. You've identified and prioritized. Now what do you do? Generally, there are 5 categories. You can accept it, basically, do nothing if it's within your appetite.
Okay.
You can avoid it, maybe get out of that line of business entirely.
Drastic, but an option.
Sometimes necessary. You can pursue it, maybe accept even more risk because the potential reward is high, but you need to understand what that entails.
High risk, high reward.
Potentially.
Yeah.
You can reduce it, implement controls, mitigation techniques to lower the severity or likelihood.
The most common one, probably.
Often, yes. Or you can share it. Think outsourcing certain functions or buying insurance. You're transferring some of the risk burden. And what's really interesting is that choosing a risk response might actually make you go back and rethink your strategy or objectives. It's a feedback loop.
Right. It's not strictly linear. Deciding how to respond could change your goals. That leads perfectly into the next component, review and revision, the SIR part. How does this keep the ERM system alive and kicking?
Review and revision is all about keeping the system dynamic and relevant. It's like that constant health check. C stands for assesses substantial change. Are there big shifts happening either inside the company or outside in the environment that could mess with your strategy or objectives? Think new tech, leadership changes, new regulations, even cultural shifts.
Staying alert to the changing landscape.
Absolutely. Amani pursues improvement in ERM. You should always be looking for ways to get better at this. Maybe new technology can help, maybe tweaking governance, maybe improving communication, continuous improvement.
Never settling.
Exactly. And ERS reviews risk and performance. This is looking back. How did we actually do against our targets? Did we identify the right risks? Are new ones popping up? Is our overall risk appetite still appropriate? Do our responses need adjusting?
So you might need to revise strategy, objectives, or just how you handle risk based on this review.
Precisely. It's all about staying agile and learning from experience.
That agility feels so key today. But like you said, none of this works if people don't know what's going on. Which brings us to the last piece, information, communication, and reporting. The TACP component. How does CSO make sure insights get shared and used?
Yeah, TIP is the connective tissue. It's the lifeblood, really. TK is leverages information and technology. You need good systems to gather relevant data, both internal and external. This supports better, faster decision making.
Yeah.
Good data management, governance, processes, architecture is absolutely critical here. It lets you group information, maybe by risk category, spot concentrations, and react effectively.
Using data smartly.
Exactly. Addos's communicates risk information. You need effective channels to share this information with everyone who needs it. Internal teams, external stakeholders, the board. And you need to check, is the communication actually working? Are people getting the message?
Not just sending it out, but ensuring it lands.
Right. And PIA is reports on risk, culture, and performance. This is about presenting the whole picture. How do risk, culture, and performance relate? You report this at different levels, sometimes quantitatively, sometimes qualitatively.
What kind of reports are we talking about?
Could be anything from a portfolio risk summary, updates on emerging risks, analysis of cultural trends, maybe even benchmarking against peers. And the frequency should match the risk report on the big, fast-moving stuff more often.
Okay, that paints a really comprehensive picture of the framework. So let's bring it back to the listener. What does all this mean for you? Well, fundamentally, it means having a roadmap, a way to navigate uncertainty, to maybe even turn potential problems into opportunities for growth and value.
That's a great summary.
A strong ERM system, it's not just about defense, right? It actually offers real benefits. It increases the range of opportunities because you're considering all the possibilities, not just reacting defensively. It increases positive outcomes and hopefully reduces those negative surprises. It helps organizations get a handle on entity-wide risk, that holistic view we talked about.
Right, breaking down silos.
Exactly. It can reduce performance variability because you're anticipating bumps in the road and minimizing their impact. And crucially, it helps improve and optimize resource use. You put your money and people where they matter most.
It really shifts the focus from just avoiding bad things to proactively pursuing good things intelligently.
Being proactive, not reactive. That's the key.
And this proactive approach brings up a really vital topic right now, ESG.
Yeah.
Environmental, social, and governance factors. Organizations are increasingly realizing that these ESG-related risks aren't just, nice to haves. They're fundamental to their very existence and ability to thrive. We're talking reputation, operations, stakeholder trust. It's all intertwined.
That is such a timely point. ESG isn't some separate track anymore, is it? It seems like it has to be woven right into this ERM framework.
It absolutely does.
Can you walk us through how those 5 ERM components we just discussed apply specifically to these ESG risks? Let's start with governance and culture.
Sure. For ESG, governance and culture means, first off, leadership needs to be genuinely aware and understand these risks. Not just ticking boxes for mandatory compliance, but understanding the voluntary aspects too, the stakeholder expectations. It requires much more collaboration and information sharing about ESG issues across the entire organization. And interestingly, it also means thinking about ESG skills when you're hiring or developing talent, building that competency internally.
So embedding ESG awareness right into the company DNA, starting at the top. What about strategy and objective setting for ESG?
Here, organizations really need to consciously consider the impact of their strategies and objectives on, nature and society. And not just the immediate impact, but short, medium, and long-term consequences. It requires digging deeper, analyzing both existing and emerging ESG risks. You can't realistically set, say, a carbon reduction target without deeply understanding the operational and financial risks of failing to meet it.
Okay, so strategy needs that ESG lens. Now, how does the performance component VPR handle these often complex, sometimes less tangible ESG risks? Identifying, assessing, responding.
Yeah, this is where it gets very practical. For identification, companies use tools like megatrend analysis, SWOT analysis focused on ESG, or direct stakeholder engagement. They might run workshops specifically discussing ESG risk events, like what's the likelihood of a supply chain disruption due to extreme weather, what's the impact, what are the root causes, how can we prevent it. Collaboration between the traditional risk team and sustainability experts is absolutely vital here.
Bringing different expertise together.
Exactly. For assessment and prioritization, A and P, you rely heavily on that ESG expertise to gauge the severity accurately and communicate why it matters. And for response, you consider the source of the ESG risk, the costs and benefits of different actions, always keeping your overall risk appetite in mind. And crucially, you need to think about the short, medium, and long-term ripple effects of your response.
Can you give us an example of that in action?
Sure, let's imagine a hypothetical big pharma drug co. They might be concerned about reputational risk linked to, say, perceptions of predatory pricing for a life-saving drug. Suddenly, a potential governance issue, maybe around transparency or fairness, and a social issue, customer relations and access to medicine, morph into a significant reputational risk. So using an ERM approach, stakeholders management, maybe patient groups, ethicists would discuss the likelihood of public backlash, the potential impact on brand value, stock price, maybe even regulatory scrutiny, and then they'd brainstorm responses. How can we ensure pricing practices align with our stated ESG values around social responsibility and access? It makes the abstract risk very concrete and actionable.
That's a great illustration. It connects the dots clearly. And naturally, after responding, you need to circle back with review and revision for ESG.
Constantly. The SAR component is critical here. You're always assessing substantial change related to ESG new regulations, shifting social expectations, scientific findings on climate. You're always pursuing improvement in how you handle these risks. And you're constantly reviewing risk and performance related to ESG. Did our response work? What new ESG risks are emerging? The landscape here changes so fast, review is non-negotiable.
It has to be dynamic. And finally, information, communication, and reporting, the tip E for ESG, making sure this complex data is actually useful.
Absolutely critical. The accuracy of ESG data can be challenging, but it's paramount. The goal of TIP here is ensuring management and stakeholders get the right information to make informed decisions. This involves leveraging technology to track complex metrics, think greenhouse gas emissions, diversity statistics, supply chain impacts, and then reporting clearly on these risks and the company's performance. For instance, climate disclosures might detail board oversight, how climate risk is integrated, specific reduction plans, financial metrics, emissions data, targets. It's about transparency and accountability.
Wow, okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the basic definitions of enterprise risk management all the way to how it applies in this incredibly relevant area of ESG. You, listening, should now have this powerful framework for understanding how organizations navigate risk, not just to survive, but really to create and sustain value. And importantly, how all of this impacts everyone involved, including you.
And maybe if we connect this to the bigger picture one last time, it's a good reminder that basically every decision we make, whether it's in a huge corporation or our daily lives, carries some level of risk. The real skill, the true mastery, isn't about somehow avoiding all risk because, well, you can't. It's about understanding it, really getting it, aligning it with your purpose, whatever that might be, and then consciously using it, leveraging it to reach for your most ambitious goals.
That's a fantastic final thought. So next time you hear about a company's big success story, or maybe a significant challenge they're facing, try looking at it through this ERM lens we've discussed. Ask yourself, what risks did they likely take? How might they have managed them? How did it seem to impact their value, their reputation, their stakeholders? We really hope this deep dive has given you a powerful new way to understand the organizations and the world around you. Until next time, keep digging for those insights.